Yeah, okay, here we go.
Hello, this is George.
Good morning.
And this is Adonai's Sanctuary Truth Classroom. And it's the 23rd of September. And we're going to go over, what is it? Joshua 11.
I didn't post that one, I posted it.
You didn't?
I just told them to join us, I just didn't give them the thing to read.
Well, we got celebrities in the house tonight. And here they are. Ta-da! Can you see them both? Yep. That's our son and his wife, Tom and Yvonne.
Oh, wait.
I'm not going to tell you which one's which.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you which one's which. They have to figure that out themselves.
Yep, they got to figure it out. You are ready?
Yep, go ahead, dear.
I have a little saying right before we get started on 11. And it's something that I have thought about when I was studying in 1 King. And for some reason, this came out of some of the writing. It's about what we try to do here. In some very small way, we are trying to protect you from your own want of destruction. Now, what do we mean by that? There's so many people who like to go by what the priests say in their church, what they've been brainwashed to believe, without studying the scripture and finding out what it really means. Now, George, our professor, our doctor, is starting to find out that most of what we say here is strictly what Adonai wants us to tell you. And if you look it up in your own Bible, 99% of the time, you'll see that what we state is what the scriptures say, not what your priest tries to get you to believe. Now, I admit we're in Yehoshua, and there isn't a lot that really excitement, but there's really a lot of information that goes on in these chapters. And like George always says, he didn't realize Deuteronomy was so important. But now we're in, like I said, Yehoshua chapter 11. You ready, sweetie?
Yep.
Okay. You can start reading by chapter 11, 1 through 5. My sweetie's going to read that.
Mess up all those names.
And she's got a lot of hard words to say. So.
When Yavin, king of Hazor, heard of it, he informed Yavah, king of Madon, the king of Shimron, the king of Jashoff, the kings to the north in the hills, in the Avaron south of Kenat, in the Shephal, in the region of Dorn on the west, the Canaanites to the east and west, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites in the hills, and the Hivites at the foot of Haran in the land of Mitzvah. So they set out, they and all their armies, many people in number like the sands on the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. All these kings met together. They came and pitched camp together in the Moran Springs to fight Israel.
Now, every time we've ever went through one of these chapters, you get the idea that, well, yeah, Adonai's with them, so they're going to defeat that little army or that army they're at. Well, here they got about 5 or 10 kings going against, in their countries going against the children of Israel. So, like my sweetie said, other kings took notice and joined forces. The kings were from the countries of Hazor, Madon, Shimron, Achshah, the kings from the north in the hills, the desert, which was south of the Dead Sea, which is south of what we call the Sea of Galilee. And over in Israel, they call it the Sea of Corinth. The area was by the Canaanites, who were to the east and west, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Yevanites. I have no idea how to pronounce that. And they joined forces, all set out for battle. They all joined together. Then their armies grew to such great numbers. My sweetie says, like sand on the seashore. Mm-hmm. Don't you think the Hebrews, who may have had 300,000 soldiers, but they say millions of them coming at them? And sweetie's going to read verse 6.
Adonai said to Joshua, "Don't be afraid on their account, because at this time tomorrow I will hand them over, all of them dead, before Israel. You are to hamstring their horses and burn up their chariots."
Again, Israel, don't worry or be scared of that large of a group. Tomorrow I will hand them over to you. And they looked out and they saw a huge amount of people. That huge number, well, they ended up dead. Now this part would have the animal activists in an uproar. Hamstring all their horses. Why do that? Those horses didn't do anything to them. Let me tell you why. People, it's because Adonai said to. If he told them to do it, they are to do it. We make no excuses why. We do it because Adonai said so. That's an interesting statement. If you or your organization want to go on the same way as the 250 men of Israel did in, well, Numbers 16:35. Read that, please.
Then fire came out from Adonai and destroyed the 250 men that have offered the incense.
All right, that's 250 men. But they got millions coming at them. Or how about the ones in Numbers 17, 6 through 15. My sweetie's going to read that.
By the very next day, the whole community of the people of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron. "You have killed Adonai's people." However, as the community was assembling against Moses and Aaron, they looked in the direction of the tent of meeting and saw the cloud cover it, and the glory of Adonai appear. Moses and Aaron came from the front of the tent of meeting. Adonai said to Moses, "Get away from this assembly, and I will destroy them at once." But they fell on their faces. Moses and Aaron, "Take your fire pan, put fire from the altar in it, lay incense on it, and hurry with it to the assembly to make atonement for them, because anger has gone out from Adonai, and the plague has already begun." Aaron took it as Moses had said, and I ran into the middle of the assembly. There the plague had already begun among the people, but he added the incense and made atonement for the people. He stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stopped. Those dying from the plague numbered 14,700, besides those who had died at Korash in the Korash incident. Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the plague was stopped.
Now, I want you to understand something. Those 14,700 were Hebrews who didn't do what Adonai said. Adonai's chosen people. So I guess you might say Adonai doesn't really show favorites if you don't obey him, or don't at least try to do what he says. That 14,700 added to the 250, and those 250 were also Hebrews, were dead from the power of Adonai. Now, if you listen to what my sweetie read, Adonai wanted the whole group dead. All of Israel. But Aaron And Moses begged for him not to do that. Matter of fact, Aaron took a pan full of incense or burning coals and ran in the middle of it, trying to save as many people. That's why only 14,700 died. Because Adonai really wanted to do away with a huge amount of Hebrews because they wouldn't, well, back then and since then, the Hebrews haven't done what Adonai has said. But then neither do the people, though I call them pretend Christians, do either. And remember, if you ever find a real Christian, give me a call, because I've never met one. My sweetie's going to read Joshua 11, 7 and 8.
So Joshua came against them suddenly with all his fighting men and fell on them at the Merom spring. Adonai handed them over to Israel. They attacked and chased them to greater Hesdon. I forgot these words. Mesphora Maya, and eastward to the Metzvah Valley. They attacked them until none of them were left.
Israel's fighting men attacked them at the spring of Merom. If you study the Merom Springs, it is about 8 to 10 miles west of Hazar. Now, I believe Hazar was one of the places that actually attacked Israel, which is about 15 miles north of Lake Kinnereth, or what is now known as the Sea of Galilee, chasing them until none were left. That's what you read, right?
Mm-hmm.
11:9 lets us know that Yehoshua and his men carried out Adonai's instructions to the letter this time. Read 9. Well, at least they thought they did.
Joshua did to them what Adonai had ordered. He hamstrung their horses and burned up their chariots.
Now, that's what Adonai told them to do. But they weren't done. Read 10 and 11, please.
Then Joshua turned back and captured Hedzor, striking its king dead with a sword. For in time past, Hedzor had been the head of all those kingdoms. Just 10, right? So 10 and 11.
10 and 11.
They put everyone there to death with a sword, completely destroying them. There was nothing left that breathed, and he burned Hedzor to the ground.
Capturing Hedzor, killing their king, everything that breathed they killed. Listen to that. Now, if you really think about it, the last 8 or 10 or 12, 15 times they raided places that were on Adonai's land, they killed everything that breathed. Then after making rubble out of that place, Hedzor, and killing their king, they burned Hedzor, destroying it completely. Read 12, please.
Joshua captured all the cities of those kings and the kings as well. He defeated them with a sword and completely destroyed them, as Moses, the servant of Adonai, had ordered.
All those other cities got the same outcome. That's more or less what she just read, right?
Mm-hmm.
Read 13, please.
But as for the cities built on their tells, Israel burned none of them except Hadzor. Joshua did burn that one. I liked when they said that.
Built on their tells. Now, I think we've talked about this once before, but we're going to go over it again for the people who might not have heard it. Now, what are tills? T-E-L-S. It stated cities built on them that one took some time finding. Over the centuries, cities were built on those mounds under those mounds seem to have been where centuries before they may have buried their dead. In other words, their funeral, their
cemeteries.
I'm getting old. In other words, when a plague or a huge sickness came about, they might bury their large number of people in one huge spot, where over centuries of no one living there, that small or medium mound would become a huge mound of remains, which accumulates under a city built on their cemetery over the centuries. Because over the centuries, the dirt and the sand and everything that would erode and go over. Back then, they didn't have big steel gates and big stones that say George was buried here. They just buried the people. And if it was a plague, they put them all in one big spot. And over the centuries and centuries, those mounds would have been over those cemeteries. But she also said, those spots would not be destroyed by Israel. There are words from tills that pertain to the last particle of an existence. Now, this is pretty interesting. I even underlined this. There are words from tills that explain or pertain to the last particle of existence, human or animal. In other words, when they buried him in there, the decay may have taken their skin, their bones, and everything, but they knew they were still buried there. And I like the way that said it, from tills that pertain to the last particle of existence. That was interesting to me. That is what we found. Now Scripture only says tills, which without an explanation. If we are wrong, which we are every once in a while, we're wrong. But it would seem there remains, if any of them left, they might not want to insult such a place. So the Israelites wouldn't go there by keeping the burial site observation. Interesting. I don't know where I come up with that. That was pretty good. Yehoshua 11, 14 and 15, please.
All the spoils of these cities and the livestock the people of Israel took as booty for themselves. But every human being they put to death with a sword until they had destroyed them. They left no one breathing. Moses had given orders to Joshua just as Adonai had given orders to Moses his servant. And Joshua acted accordingly. He did everything Adonai had ordered Moses.
This time they destroyed everything that breathed except what they could take as booty. In other words, their animals and whatever they could get. In this instance, Adonai didn't say kill everything. They just said kill the people. Not one person lived. That's what you read, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like the orders to Moses from Adonai, Yehoshua finished the job with those kings and cities. Listen to what they did. Read 16 through 18, please.
So Joshua captured all that land, the hills, the Negev, all the land of Goshen and Shephelah and Arvan, and the Israel's hills and Shephelah, from the bare mountain that goes up to Seir, to Baal Gad, to the Lebanon Valley, to Mount Hermon. And he took all their kings, struck them, and put them to death. Joshua made war with all those kings for a long time.
They took them by force because the land belonged to Adonai. That's the chosen land. And he was letting Israel, his chosen people, he wanted them to live there. Now she read Shephelah. Shephelah was a pasture land, valley of grassy land for grazing. That's when you read that for Shephelah. We have heard that Jehoshua was a ruthless killer taking the land by force. Well, yeah. He did that when Adonai told him to. Other kings made treaties with their enemy when they were supposed to do away with them. He wasn't the king. He was their leader. Well, he did take the land and obey what Adonai told him to do. I guess I could have read that next part and I wouldn't have had to talk about that. Read 19 and 20, please.
Not one city made peace with the people of Israel except the Hivites living in Givon. They took everything in battle. For it was Adonai who caused them to harden their hearts and come against Israel in battle, so that they would be utterly destroyed, so that they would not find favor, but be destroyed, in keeping with the orders Adonai had given Moses.
Was that, well, really, Adonai who caused those kings and their friends to come to war with Israel? Because that way they would fulfill Adonai's orders he first gave to Moses. I think if they wouldn't have done that, Adonai would have had Jehoshua go and take the territory anyway. That Jehoshua was doing was Adonai's orders. Doing it, didn't the order say, or was the order given to Moses by Adonai was going to be accomplished with the likes of Israel? And Jehoshua now was going to do it as their new leader. Here's where Jehoshua and Israel went against Adonai's instructions. Oh no, remember I said back then, back here in this other page, that they always did what Adonai said? And I said, well, most of the time. Well, I forget what comment it was, but my sweetie's going to read 21 and 22.
Joshua at that time came and cut off the Anakim from the land, from Hebron, Divon, Anan, and from all the hill country of Judah and Israel. Joshua utterly destroyed them and their cities. No Anakim was left in the land of the people of Israel. Only in Azar, Gad, and Ashdod did some remain.
Only in those three places did they let the Anakim live there. We read what Israel was to do with the Anakim people we have to go all the way back to Deuteronomy 9, 2 and 3 to find out what they were supposed to do to the Anakim people. What were they supposed to do?
A people great and tall, the Anakims who you know about and of whom you have heard say, who can stand before the descendants of Anak? Therefore understand today that Adonai your God will himself cross ahead of you in a devouring fire. He will destroy them and bring them down before you. Thus you will drive them out and cause them to perish quickly, as Adonai said to you.
They were to perish, not left to live. Yet in Jehoshua 11, 21 and 22, it states they left them alone. Remember who the Anakim were? I bet most people don't. The giants that the spies saw in Numbers 13, read 13:33, please.
We saw the Nephilim, the descendants of Anak, who were from the Nephilim. To ourselves We looked like grasshoppers by comparison, and we looked that way to them too.
The descendants of Achan, the Nephilim, giants, and they let them live. Read 23, please.
Joshua took the whole land in keeping with all that Adonai had said to Moses and to Israel, according to their divisions into tribes. Then the land rested from war.
Interesting. Then the land, it rested. Now, that's the end of 11. What I'm going to say right now is what chapter 12 is really about. Chapter 12 is a summary of all the area and the names of their kings. In all, 12. It seems to be a review, all of chapter 12, in what Israel under Yahushua and what he had done. Taking Adonai's land and killing 31 kings. They're all listed right there. And the idea of going over a few verses of the highlights or the review of what Jehoshua did, and then reading all those 31 names of the kings, if you want to do that, you're more than welcome.
Chapter 12.
See, those 31 kings are what Adonai had to have done for him and his people to be in the promised land. And I wrote, it seems like the land was to be theirs now. But how many people take it away, give it to some other people, destroy it, attack Israel, and do their own thing? But it isn't all the other people's fault. Israel, if they'd have kept to the word of Adonai, would have been there forever. Scripture says that. But they kept falling away. So you got to blame the other people, but you also have to blame the people of Israel, the Hebrews, for being more like the people of today, of falling away instead of following the truth of Adonai and his word. We're going to read chapter 13 next week. And if anybody wants to come on and say, read all of chapter 12 and all those 31 kings with all those names, I welcome you. But that's it for tonight. See, one thing we have to understand is Scripture, when you're reading the truth, it doesn't always look like a glorious view of what we read. But it is what Adonai said and what Adonai wants. And that's what we try to do. Try to bring out truth. Most people don't like it. Most people read with the brainwashing of their denominational church or their biblical philosophy of what their denomination says. Read for truth. You don't have to get excited every time you read a chapter, but think about it. It's the truth of what Adonai says. Have a good week. Bye.